All right. All right. So let me tell you, walk you through the journey. So prior to my co-active coach training, whenever I would start an agile coaching engagement, my version one, MVP one of a coactive, not a coactive, MVP one of my first conversation with my Scrum team and my stakeholders typically used to be just building personal rapport. And I would try and connect with them as a human being. And my intent was, if we can connect, find some human connection, then I can partner with them uh, as in terms of our agile transformation or agile enablement or Scrum adoption. So it worked sometime, but every once in a while, it kind of hit a roadblock. It hit an impediment. To make this interactive, I want to just pause and I want to get some feedback from you folks. Typically, what have you set as the intention or the agenda or acceptance criteria of your first conversation? And what's been working for you and what are some roadblocks you've hit? If you're comfortable, you can speak up or you can type something in the chat window. Okay, so Cheryl is saying, want to learn about them. Mark, getting to know them personally, both them getting to know me, me getting to know them. One-on-one meeting to know each other, investing in the personal relationship. Very cool. And here's where I realized what the challenge was. And Jeffrey's saying, being honest and genuinely interested in them. Yes. So here's where I realized there was a gap in my approach. So the gap was there were I would say for the most part, I was able to build a human connection with people and find some common ground. And then I was able to create enough alliances with partners so that we could make steady progress in terms of Scrum adoption. But every once in a while, I would just hit a roadblock. And I was trying to figure out what's going on, and I was stuck. I reached a plateau. So my question to you is, how many of you have had a similar encounter where there is that one stakeholder or one member of the Scrum team with whom, no matter how hard you try, you're just not able to build a rapport, you're not able to find a common ground? How many have had that experience? All right, Mike is saying, Mike has had, okay. Mark has had, all right, a bunch of people. Have you noticed any patterns in terms of either what are the 20% of reasons why 80% of, or what are 20% of the factors that are common to 80% of those situations? Personality triggers. So Bev is saying personality triggers, not aligned with the why behind the product. Fixed mindset is the biggest challenge. Communication. Yeah. So a lot of factors. And one of the things that I learned about myself through the CTI training is mismatched values could also be a factor. I am bringing certain core values to every relationship, especially Scrum coaching relationships. And if those values are not honored, then I find it very difficult to build a constructive relationship with that person. So what this allowed me to do, this realization allowed me to do, was to reflect upon my non-negotiables such that I can better manage them. Either I can be completely transparent and upfront with my client and tell them, look, this is who I am, this is what I stand for, and here are some non-negotiables. Or if I realize that those non-negotiables are not aligned with my life goals or the outcomes that I want to create in this context, then I can work on myself with my own coach. So when I look back at the personalities or the archetypes or the patterns, a couple of things stood out in terms of what was the disconnect, what prevented me from having a coactive relationship or having a healthy dance of coach-client relationship. One was when I asked them, what do you want? One answer was, I hate Scrum. And there were some people, maybe they had a bad experience with Scrum in the past. And before I have spoken a single word, they already hate me. And they hate me because I represent something that they hate, which is Scrum. The second area where I've had a conflict is their interpretation of Scrum is incompatible with my interpretation of Scrum. So these are two examples that I have. How many of you have faced either one of these, or this triggers a recollection of some other example which has caused conflicts in your relationships? Cheryl, I didn't know if you wanted to speak. You should be able to unmute or put something on the chat window if you wanted to. I just saw your raised hand.
Yeah, I remember somebody when I first took over a team that they were only doing daily scrums twice a week. And I asked them why they would do that. And the response was that was enough because they didn't really get anything out of it anyways.
Yeah. And so if we were to tie it back to mismatches or the principles or values or beliefs, what was, as you reflect back, what was like a trigger or a conflict between their view and your view?
It was a combination of things. They were very siloed, so they didn't see any benefit of telling each other, what they were doing or discussing what they were doing.
Yeah.
So they weren't cross-functional. They weren't, they didn't have a sprint goal. There were a lot of different things going on there.
Yeah. And, that's been one of my most common experiences where I feel I've been hired as a Scrum coach or an Agile coach because it's uncool. It is perceived as uncool or psychologically unsafe to practice any form of delivery other than Agile. It feels like waterfall is a dirty word. And so there is a mad stampede where if you happen to be at a party and somebody asks you, so what kind of process are you using? It might be embarrassing for people to say, oh, we use waterfall. So everybody wants to make sure that if anybody ever asks you, what are you doing or what are you using? Everybody wants to say, oh, we are Agile, we use Scrum. And it's lipstick on a pig. Their interpretation of Agile and Scrum is very different from mine. And we have fundamental disconnects about what is negotiable and non-negotiable. And so when
doing waterfall with a few Scrum words.
Yeah, so it's just like waterfall, and then you just sprinkle a few, maybe you'll have a daily stand-up, and oxymoronically, it'll be twice a week. So that's very often I found, well, we like some parts of Scrum, and maybe we'll have a sprint demo. There is no such thing as sprint demo in the Scrum Guide, but we'll have a sprint demo every 2 weeks. Maybe we'll have sprint planning, and then we'll cherry pick whatever we like. And sometimes it's possible that you have an authority figure who's telling either a team lead, project manager, business, dev manager, someone who is pre-populating the sprint backlog and is telling the team what to do. And the Scrum Master is merely like an administrative assistant, or a Scrum Coach is maybe an enforcer or administrative assistant who is enforcing whatever implementation or interpretation of Scrum management has chosen. So that's been a very common challenge. What do you do? So imagine you are hired and you have some immovable objects who either hate Scrum on your Scrum team or crucial stakeholders, or their interpretation of Scrum is completely different. What would you do in that situation? What has worked for you and what has not worked for you? Didn't work.
So I think my approach would be more focusing on the results they're trying to achieve. Mm-hmm. There has been situations I don't use the word agile at all for a few months in an environment because they've had some agile fatigue, let's say. and focus on the results they want to achieve and the pain points that they currently have, instead of trying to argue my version of Scrum is better than yours or vice versa. I don't think that's not going to take us anywhere. So that's my usual approach, is not to let that get in the way of achieving real value delivery or the results that we're looking for.
Yeah, my approach is pretty similar. I was being told by the development team that Agile is a lot of waste of time. On one hand, you say that Agile is all about moving fast and less meetings, but Agile ended up having a lot of meetings. So I'm just trying to make it more productive, very short meetings, even if Agile doesn't recommend, I just do a lot of one-on-ones to mitigate the risk of resistance.
Very good. Very good. Yeah, and I'm a slow learner. So it took me a long time to get to the point where KJ and JT already are. One of the things that, and Stacy, thank you. Thank you for your thoughts as well. Did not use the word agile. So what I learned from CTI is that if you choose to believe in the co-active model of coaching, a coaching relationship is one where the coach, where let's say the Scrum Master or the Scrum Coach is trying their level best to help the client achieve the client's goal. And the first inauthenticity I discovered in my coaching stance was it wasn't about the client. It wasn't about what the client wanted. It wasn't about the client's agenda. Very often it was about my agenda. So that's where I saw a disconnect, because if my agenda is, I want my legacy to be an effective and healthy adoption of Scrum, then the inauthenticity I recognized in myself is it's no longer a healthy, ethical coaching relationship, because it's almost as if the people who I am claiming to coach are pawns or means to an end. The end being Ravi wants to look back and Ravi wants to be able to say, I did good at the client. I helped the client. Look where they were before and look where they are after. So that's an inauthenticity I discovered through the co-active coaching. So I realized that my first goal is to do what KJ and JT mentioned, which is focus on the why of the client. And if it's a healthy coaching relationship between the coach and the client, then it's like a triangle. So this is what I learned in co-active training, where let's say this is you, the coach, and this is the client. You are both working towards the client's goals. And it's like a dance. It's like an effortless dance. If you are pushing too hard, that means something is wrong. It's like if you feel like you are pushing a rock up the mountain, and every time you make progress and the rock comes rolling down and crushes you, and then you have to go back down and push it up. So if you are pushing too hard, something needs adjustment. If the client is pushing too hard, if the client feels, man, this coach is not doing any hard work, something needs adjustment. So that's the discovery that I had, which is you've got to focus on the client's why and not your why. And then you have to design an alliance between you and the client so your relationship feels like an effortless dance. However, there is one challenge. I was hired as an agile coach, and I was hired as a Scrum coach. And one of the things that I've realized is that I can provide two kinds of coaching. One is pure co-active coaching, where I am hired to help a client or an organization achieve a certain outcome, and I'm not attached to any particular framework or model. My goal is just to help a one-on-one client or an organization achieve their goal. When I'm in that kind of a stance, Scrum is nowhere in the picture, empiricism, agile, nothing is in the picture. I'm just there to serve the client. I don't have a problem with that. But I do have a problem if somebody hires me as a Scrum coach precisely because they want me to help them implement Scrum as implemented in the Scrum guide or defined in the Scrum guide. And then I realized that some of the non-negotiable principles and values that I hold dear as a Scrum coach are not going to be honored. So what have I learned? What I have learned is to avoid getting stuck in situations like this, where I am hired as a Scrum coach for a company that does not believe in Scrum. Right from the get-go in the interviews, I start being very transparent about what are my non-negotiables. And if you hire me as a Scrum Master or a Scrum Coach, who am I going to be? So what I want to share in this webinar is I want to share a certain set of questions which I would recommend that you consider for interviews. You may not use all of these questions. I'll share 14 questions with you. I would recommend that if you are deeply passionate about the art and craft of coaching, it could be Scrum coaching, or it could be just regular coaching. You just want to help people get better. One suggestion I have is that you ask these questions in the interview phase, so that you make sure you are getting into a situation where your values and principles are honored and the client's values and principles are honored, and it's a healthy, co-active relationship, coaching relationship, where it feels like an effortless dance towards the outcome that the client wants. So that is one situation in which I would recommend you consider these questions. And the second situation that I would recommend that you consider these questions is also for your first conversation with your team members, Scrum team members, and with your stakeholders. So I'm going to share these questions in chunks, probably chunks of 4. And after every logical chunk, I will pause and I will see if anyone might be willing to answer those questions from their own perspective in the context of being a Scrum Master or a Scrum Coach. So as you're listening to me, start answering these, thinking about the answers to these questions from your own current stance. And I'll invite anyone who is willing to share those answers. Any questions so far? Okay. So let's dance. This canvas that I'm sharing is freely available on my website. So in a blog. And so I will also share the link with you after this presentation is over. Okay. SmoothApps.com. So the first question, the most important question, is asking the client or potential client, what do you want? So as KJ and JD might have implied, it's important to figure out what is the client's why. Maybe it's value delivery, maybe it's time to market. I want to reduce time to market. I want to minimize waste. Each person, each human being probably has a why that makes them get out of bed and go to work. The second is like an acceptance criteria. By when do you want it? Some people may be in a rush and they might say, I want it, I want us to be agile, or I want us to increase the value delivered or decrease time to market within 30 days or 90 days, or this is a 1-year plan or a 5-year plan. The when is important because it might inform you about the sense of urgency that the client has about achieving the outcome. The next technique is, this is like an acceptance criteria. How will you know you have what you want? Just like in a user story, chances are as Scrum coaches or a product backlog item, chances are that you recommend that your clients define the target state, because that's what allows empiricism. Empiricism allows you to compare the current state against the target state, gives you something to work towards. And when there's a delta between what you want and what you're getting, you unpack the gap for wisdom and course correction. So how will you know when you have what you want? You ask the client. And then this is the deeper why. What's going to be possible for you, your users, your customers, your investors, the community, the world? What's going to be possible if you achieve that outcome within your time frame? What is it that you wish for the world or the people who you care about that is not currently happening that will become possible once you achieve this goal? Let me pause and see if you have any reactions to these questions.
Should the question should always be backed by math data, meaning should it always be quantifiable?
Let's take an example, JD. So would you be willing to share something that maybe one of your clients may have said or team members may have said that I could
Sure,
use as an
like
example? Yeah.
like you have a product backlog of 200 items. We want to ship 300 items by the end when we become Scrum mature. We need to start CI/CD pipeline with daily updates to the clients. Now, what does a daily update mean? Like, do you want that we should kind of start 4 production bug fixes, 10 production bug fixes? And people rarely have any idea about the quantifiable terms in real world. They
Yes.
do talk about MVP, but everybody is in their own la la land, promising some unicorns to the stakeholders.
Yeah. Yeah, that's such a great question. And I would say one of the things I learned again from CTI is a good, powerful question is the one to which neither you nor the client knows the answer. So if you ask them a question and they don't know the answer, especially when it comes to how will you know you have it, the quantifiable goal, I would say help them discover the answer. Because if you don't know what you want, any road will get you there, right? Alice in Wonderland. So I would say help them. And if they say, I want to reduce time to market, or I want to reduce the number of hours or minutes it takes for a developer to deploy to production, great. How will you know you have it? I don't know, beats me. Let's brainstorm. How about we brainstorm? What do you see happening? And maybe you go back and forth. So maybe you go to point 4 and we say, what will become possible if you have a CI/CD pipeline?
Gotcha. Okay.
And I might say, well, right now it's so frustrating. The developers spend so much time checking in, manual process. But you know what? If they had push button deployment, then they could just click a button. If there are errors, they fix it. And then they could go on to delivering or working on the next item that makes them fulfill. Excellent. How long would you like this process to take? Well, ideally it should just happen 1 minute. Bang. You help them figure out the answer to 3. So I would recommend, whether you are in a non-Scrum coaching, non-Agile coaching stance, or you are in an Agile coaching stance, I would recommend that you help the client quantify how will they know that they are successful. Okay. Any other questions about these? Who might be willing to answer these questions from your current perspective as a Scrum Master or a Scrum Coach? You can answer verbally.
The product owner, owner and leadership.
Okay.
Product owner.
Product owner. Okay.
Yeah,
so would anyone be willing to either do role playing from the perspective of someone in your current ecosystem who you are trying to coach, or as yourself? I just want to take it for a test drive, this model. How would you answer these questions in your current context, whatever your role you may be playing? Or how might you answer it from the perspective of a person you are having difficulty building a rapport with as a coach?
All right, this is KJ again. I guess I can play the client. I don't know who wants to play the coach.
All right, go ahead.
All right, so one very typical answer that I've been getting in the last few years is very generic when it comes to what you want, right? It will be faster delivery, higher quality, happier employees.
Okay, faster delivery, higher quality, happy employees. Very good. And then what would the client say to the second question? By when do you want it?
As soon as possible.
As soon as possible. And if we were to quantify it, ask them to quantify.
Let's say by the next board meeting that I have to go to.
Okay. When is the next board meeting? So KJ, let's, I'm doing some role playing here. So you are the client and I'm KJ. So When is the next board meeting?
November 2020.
All right. November. It is November. I mean, it's December 2021. Let's say November 2022.
Oh, 2022. I meant to say 2022.
Okay. So we got 9 months. Let's imagine we've got 9 months from Jan. Oh, no, my math is horrible. 10 months. Okay. So by when do you want it? 10 months. How will you know it? How will you know you have it?
I would say we have bi-weekly releases.
Very good. Bi-weekly. So that takes care of faster time to market, perhaps. Then
Our production bugs have a 20% reduction.
20% reduction, that takes care of quality. And
my next employee happiness survey results improves. I mean, if we are going to get to specifics, maybe the net promoter score of us as a company went from 7 to 8, let's say.
Very good. So I think the release frequency increases. Did you say twice a month? I apologize.
Oh yeah, that's good enough, I guess.
Yeah.
Twice a month. Yeah.
Yeah. So release frequency goes to twice a month. 20% reduction in production defects, and 1 point improvement in the employee net promoter score from 7 to 8. And then what would be possible if these 3 things happen?
Can you clarify that question a little bit more?
So imagine you have 2 deliveries a month. Imagine you have 20% less defects and the net promoter score goes from 7 to 8. Who are the people who are impacted? What do you see different in the world, in your company, as a result of this?
Well, definitely we'll have happier business operations people because they had to deal with less production related costs or fixes. And then we'll have more sales because we improved our competitiveness in the market by being able to deliver enhancements or new features faster than our competitors. And we're able to retain and attract the talents that we want to attract by improving the employee happiness.
Very cool. So now we can get a sense for the values of this stakeholder that KJ is representing. This person values what, if you were to hear these answers, what would you be able to infer about what this stakeholder values? Anybody can answer the question. What does this human being value based on the answers that they just gave?
I think everything boils down to strategic objectives of the organization, and mainly it helps with the happy stakeholders, holding up the financial structure of the organization, budgets, working around the triple constraints, scope, schedule, and budget. And when the 3 are in alignment, everybody's happy, including the upper management to everyone in general.
Yeah. And I heard happy, I think ops employees or so, it felt like I heard the word happy a couple of times. So my inference was this person cares about human beings. This person cares about the happiness of colleagues. And then I also heard sales and competition, being competitive, more revenue. So as the client starts answering these questions, you might start getting a sense for the value system of the client, what matters to them. So now let's go back, move on with this. And KJ, if you are comfortable, I'd love for you to share your perspective or the stakeholders' perspective in these questions. So now this is the target state. This is the context for the coaching relationship. And then this is the current state. So the next part is asking the client, where are you now? How long have you been here? What's it costing you? And why does it matter? Why does it matter that you move from here to here?
Yeah, sure. I can give it a try. Do you want me to talk about it from all three goals that we mentioned earlier, or are we going to pick one and go through those?
Just model your stakeholder and
Okay.
yeah.
So okay, number 5, where are you now? I would say currently, just hypothetically, right? We're deploying every quarter.
Mhm.
And our current, average production bug per deployment is, let's say, 20. We found 20 issues on average per deployment or per release. And then, of course, our employee net promoter score is 7, right? That's where we are right now on those 3 fronts.
Mhm.
How long have you been there? I'll say for the last 7 years. We've been maintaining a status quo like that, or maybe with the exception of the net promoter scores, because we just started doing that 3 years ago. And what is it costing you? So on the release frequency, the costs are from different aspects. One is it's stressing out my software development and IT teams, because those are big bang, complex and long release that they have to work, nights and weekends to be able to get it happen. Also, it's potentially costing business because we weren't able to satisfy the needs of the market. So I don't have concrete numbers from our sales team, but I'm suspecting they might have lost some sales because of that, right? So there's that. And then, of course, the cost of patching up or hot fixes after release is another cost. That's from the angle of quarterly releases. Well, actually, I also touched on the production bugs. So, and also the people management, managers, directors will have to either work really hard to keep the good talents they want to keep, or they'll just have to let them go, see them go, because there is another company that has better culture and people are happier over there. So those are the costs I can think of. And then it's harder for us to recruit because maybe our company's Glassdoor score is not that high, let's say, right? Why does it matter? I think a lot of it is stress and unnecessary waste in our way of doing things. And then not having confidence on how this company can grow organically by gaining better business, having better employees.
Cool. Thank you so much, KJ.
Sure.
Other folks, sorry, KJ, did you have anything else? Did you want to add?
That's all I can come up with.
Very cool. That was really cool on the spot. So for the others, so KJ, thank you so much for being generous. For the others, what are you noticing as you see KJ role play a stakeholder? What might become possible if you tried something? What may work, what may not work? Does anyone have reactions about these 8 questions so far? Is there any question that is really resonating? Is there any that is not? You want to change it, swap it?
I just want to probably make a point of the observation. I'm hearing more of, making people happy. Yes, we look at the bottom line. We always look at the ROI, but the happiness brings together everything else, because people will be more committed and are, focused to deliver if they're happy, even when things are hard or they have to work weekends or long hours or whatever it takes to make it happen sometimes, the focus seemed to be on happy people, which to some extent, I will look at it, but I don't think I pay the attention or give it the attention that it should get. While I was listening, I was thinking of what are some of the things I could do to pull out more from the teams that I work with, their temperature or on the happiness, scale, where do they fall? Just checking regularly, or at least a little more often.
Very
Yeah,
cool.
that's what I got from that.
Yeah, thank you, Cecile. And what Cecile mentioned is super important. So I would say in the CTI context, this tool that I am introducing to you, although I'm calling it a discovery canvas, it may be appropriate in what is known as a chemistry session. A chemistry session is somebody has not yet hired you, you've not entered into a coaching relationship, but you're doing a sample session just to figure out, are you compatible? And if you do this, let's say, in the context of a job interview where the hiring manager, your boss, the person who is asking you to join the company as a Scrum Master and a Scrum Coach, if you were to go through these questions, you don't have to use this format, but in whatever way feels natural, what's going on is you are trying to get a sense for the core values of this human being who's going to be your boss and who's asking you to join, and you're trying to figure out, are this person's core values aligned with my core values? So what Cici was saying is super important. She started getting a sense of the core values of the stakeholder that KJ is role-playing. All right, we've got just about maybe 10 minutes, so I'm gonna maybe try and pick up the pace. So the next question is, what's stopping you? The next set of questions, what's stopping you? What are you trying so far? And what steps are you taking to overcome this impediment? And who are you being? So KJ, if you don't mind, would you be willing to play along? How would your stakeholder answer these questions?
Yeah, sure. What's in your way? I think that'll be not knowing how to get there. We've tried different things over the years. Some worked okay, some didn't work, but overall, it really didn't move the needle too much. So we're looking for your input and expertise into how can we actually get there. What are you doing? I am trying to be open-minded. The changes that you will be suggesting as a coach, and being able to work with you to help you understand the culture and the current state of the company at a deeper level. And then, who are you being? Okay, that's an interesting question. Are you referring to like what role this stakeholder would play in the coaching engagement? Or
no. The question is, when this stakeholder is trying to help his or her organization overcome these challenges today.
Mm-hmm.
And they're performing some actions. Some things are getting in their way in terms of increasing release frequency, decreasing production defects, and increasing happiness of team members. So they're following some steps. If they were to take a step back,
okay,
and focus not on the actions that they are taking, but who they are being while they are taking those actions, what comes up?
Okay, I would say I'll probably change my answer for number 10 then. What we are doing prior to the engaging the coaches are just asking the managers to make sure their team work harder and deliver the results that we want, and just keep the lights on or keep us afloat in the marketplace. Mm-hmm. Who am I being in this kind of situation is like someone who's playing a whack-a-mole. right? There are always fires coming up here and there, and I need to talk to the my stakeholders, about why things are not being delivered or not being delivered with the quality that they're expecting. Fighting fires, communicating to customers, especially the bigger partners, customers, because of a production bug that we found, and there needs to be some communication out. There may be some contractual issues that we need to address. So I'm just someone who's trying to keep everything going.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like reactive whack-a-mole, and I felt a sense of anxiety as you shared that. It's like, okay, I take care of this fire, and then there's another fire, and I'm just struggling to keep things going.
Yep.
And it might be, and I know I'm getting anxiety, even though we're doing role play. So now we get to, what do you need from the coach? So this is the problem domain. This is the solution domain. So what do you need from me, the coach, the Scrum Master? What are you promising to bring to the relationship? And there will be times when the change gets hard, when I, the Scrum Master or Scrum Coach, challenge you, because if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you always got. So it's possible and likely that I might challenge you to step out of your comfort zone in pursuit of these outcomes. And should things get bumpy, should I challenge you and you feel uncomfortable, who are you promising to be in our relationship, such that we can go from dissonance to resonance? Resonance being you experiencing the joy of having an organization that you dreamed of.
Yeah, I would say what I would need from a coach is going to be two or maybe even threefold, right? One is being able to examine our current situation from outside of the box, to really tell me the things that I either don't want to acknowledge or I just don't see that need to happen. And I would need you to come up with a solution and a plan, and being able to execute the plan by November 2022. What I will bring is, this is probably the perfect stakeholder that every coach is looking for. What I will bring is, I'll listen to your advice. I may challenge some of your suggestions based on my understanding of the organization. I will drive the overall message to the organization about the changes that are going to come and about the activities that is going to happen. Overall, I'll just try to be supportive and also try to be objective, because as a coach, you might bring in a solution already without knowing what the problem is at a deeper level. So I may call you out when that happens. Who will I be? I'll say, be as supportive as I can, because there may be things that are outside of my hand that I'll have to do. But I promise that I'll be as supportive as possible within my power in this engagement. And I will be someone who will have an open mind to it. And I'll try to check my ego at the door. What else? What other good qualities do coaches want?
Yeah, that's pretty good. So KJ, what would the stakeholder say if the coach asked, what if we move ahead and you hire me, I accept the position, and I'm trying to coach a member of the Scrum team or a stakeholder, and they say that they hate Scrum or their implementation is incompatible with what we want, or forget even Scrum. Their goals are misaligned with the goals you are hiring me for, which is increase release frequency, increase quality, and increase employee satisfaction. So as I'm trying to help you achieve these goals, if there are people whose goals are misaligned, how might we handle those situations?
If it is a misalignment of the goals that I mentioned earlier, then I will need to talk to those people, make sure as a company we're aligned on those goals. So that's not your problem, that's my problem.
Very cool. All right. KJ, thank you so much. If you can unmute your microphones, give him a big hand. Thank you so much, KJ, for being willing to play. We all learned a lot. So,
Right.
oh.
Glad to do
Okay, you're the stakeholder we all want.
it. Yeah.
So as we are coming down to the last few minutes, I want to just summarize what I would recommend to you. I would recommend, if you can, have this conversation in the job interview before you accept the gig. And I would also recommend that when your stakeholder, when your boss introduces you to your Scrum team and stakeholders, I would recommend that your boss goes through some of these answers in front of your stakeholders and Scrum team members, because I have seen too many Scrum Masters and Scrum coaches be disrespected by the Scrum team and stakeholders because the boss did not explain this is a precious, valued, and honored guest we are bringing into our house to help us get more of what we want. This person will help us become a champion. So, and they are here because of my invitation. So please treat them with respect and courtesy. And you have a problem, here's how we're going to negotiate. Here's how we're going to deal with the problem. Without that conversation, I've seen situations where the Scrum Master is treated like a glorified doormat. So if you do not have the luxury of having this conversation in the interview, that's okay. You are already in a situation. I would still recommend that you have this conversation with your boss and you redesign your alliance. And then based on that, you make a decision. Can I honor who I am and honor the company that I am in? And is there compatibility? And if there is, then you have similar conversations with all of your Scrum team members and stakeholders. So you can redesign your relationship with each one of them in a way that honors the goals for which you've been hired, that honors your principles and values, and their principles and values, and the company's principles and values. So those are my suggestions. As we approach the end of this conversation, what are you taking away? What is your single biggest insight? And what is one action you might be able to take as a result of this conversation?
I think these questions bring really good challenges to the people, that you'd be asking them of, just because I think that frequently, I've heard, oh, we want to go faster, without really any, pursuing, what their thought process, what do they actually mean by that? How are they going to measure it? So I think there's a lot here to help bring out what they're thinking, and if they are actually thinking that, or if they truly just, want to say they're doing agile and don't really want to do it.
Very good. Thank you so much, Cheryl. Anyone else?
I think question number 4 and question number 7 are going to be very crucial for making a decision and to gauge or just have a pulse check of where we are.
Very cool. Thank you, JD. Yeah, it's Newton's laws, right? Was it an object in rest or in motion will continue until and unless impelled upon by a greater force. So
Yeah.
Human beings, we are creatures of habit. And no matter how painful things are, we are usually more scared of change than we are of the status quo. So if I am to change my habits, there has to be something that really inspires me, or something that disgusts me to say, damn it, I'm not going to tolerate this crap anymore. And the answers to these questions may give you a sneak peek or a leading indicator of how coachable the client is, because your biggest enemy is inertia. Thank you, JD.
Yep.
Anyone else? Janlong?
Well, to me, like we are doing a health check for every stage. Like at the beginning of the project, we do an initial health check. I think the first 4 questions could be used there. And in the middle of the project, we're going to do the second phase of a health check. So to me, 5 to 8 or 5 to 11, they could be used for that phase. If we wanted to continue, and we might use the questions from 12 to 14 for the maybe third phase or last phase. And so it's very, very helpful.
Very good. Thank you. Maybe one last response, and then I'll wrap up. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. And I want to thank KJ. And I also wanted to share that silence is a very powerful tool in a coach's toolkit. So it may serve you well to overcome your discomfort with silence, because a lot of growth happens on the other side of silence. So I will share the link to this blog on the Meetup message board. The blog is in smoothapps.com. And I think it's called The Roots of Agile Suffering. If you want, just Google it, or you'll find it on the Meetup message board. Thank you so much for making the time to hang out. I will build on this next month, and I will talk about another technique from the application from the Co-Active School of Coaching. And if you want to learn more about Co-Active, check out Co-Active Coaching. Amazing model, amazing training. So with that, thank you. Keep calm and scrum on. Happy holidays.
Thanks, Ravi.
Thank you so much.
Happy holidays, Ravi.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Beautiful,
Bye-bye.
Ravi. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ravi.
Be well.